Partisan politics appears to, as it has so many times since the 1970s, spread its considerable presence in front of the constitutional reform process. The Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs and the co-chair of the Constitutional Reform Committee, the CRC, Marlene Malahou-Fort, stops by today to talk about the process from this point, given that the opposition said it's unlikely to play ball given that the government has failed to declare its position on what to do with the Caribbean Court of Justice. This is the version of Lead Story, the edition you don't want to miss. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. We are going to do two parts of this topic because the minister is here and there's a lot to cover. We can't cram all of that in one episode, so we'll let the information breathe and divide it over two shows. So she's in-house to talk about the constitutional reform process, which, to put it mildly, appears to have hit another snag. Recall that the government and the opposition, whichever party has formed the government, and of course the other major party in opposition, since the 1970s, has attempted to reform Jamaica's constitution to put certain things in order where the country is concerned, and repeatedly partisan politics in some way has gotten into the way, has gotten into the bloodstream of the process and crippled the body reform. And so here we are in 2024 talking about the same issue. The details are perhaps different, but the issue of politics getting in the way of constitutional reform is again the topic. And I've brought the minister here to have a discussion broadly to answer one question. How do we move forward from here if the opposition withdraw its consensus in what are very important decisions? Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you, George. Malahou-Fort is without a hyphen.
There you go, Malahou-Fort without a hyphen. Minister, the obvious place to start. The opposition has made it clear. They've said that, look, it's not as if our position is new. We did not just suddenly get up and tell the government, well, no position on CCJ, we are leaving the table. They said to the government before the committee that you co-chair started its work last year, what about the CCJ? If we can't get some movement on the CCJ, we are unlikely to participate. They say they got certain assurances from the Prime Minister, and so they felt that as they worked through this first phase, that the government's position on the CCJ would become clear, and they could then be satisfied enough whether to continue or how to continue. They say that has not happened, and now they've left the game with their marbles. What happens now?
Let's start with an understanding that the Constitution requires consensus between government and opposition, and then approval by the people on the matters that we're seeking to reform.
Yes.
If we can't cooperate on the things on which we agree, do we expect to cooperate on the things on which we disagree? So there is no disagreement, as we understand it, on moving the king as the head of state for Jamaica and replacing with a president for the Republic of Jamaica. There is no disagreement on that
Harmony
at all.
There.
Consensus. So in order to succeed in the process, you have to move with what you have agreement on. Views are divided on the final court. Views remain divided on the final court. And so we have to go through a process of trying to understand why people are saying what they're saying. And that process has commenced within the government and the Jamaica Labour Party to expect that today we move to implementing without assessing or without consideration of the wider views, I think is problematic. So that we will have to continue to work on the matter, and hopefully we can move ahead on that which we have consensus while working to build it on the issue of the final court.
Here's the thing Jamaicans are asking, and we have a graphic showing the three phases of the constitutional reform process. We are in phase one culminating in the preparation of a report that has been submitted to Cabinet. And if we look at phase one, it says repatriation of the Constitution of Jamaica abolition of the constitutional monarch, establishment of the Republic of Jamaica, and all matters within the deeply entrenched provisions of the Constitution for which a referendum is required to amend. That phase one is broad, takes in a few very, very important things. Explain to Jamaicans why, based on the PNP's desire, why is it that the CCJ issue cannot and has not been included in phase one?
Well, the CCJ, the matter of the final court does not require a referendum to change. And the Constitution has different categories of provisions. The government clearly understands that as we move to abolish the monarchy, we will have to make a determination on the final court. But the final court does not stand in isolation. People are deeply moved about issues of justice, you know. And as they become more aware, they are raising questions about the kind of justice that they will get. Some have said, why should we move from London to Port of Spain when those in Port of Spain are not even using the court? But we know that the CCJ is already part of our court system because we subscribe to the original jurisdictions to deal with Caribbean community matters.
Yes, the Treaty of Chaguaramas, yes.
Right. So the philosophy of the court, of any court going forward, the philosophy of the Privy Council has been called into question many times here. The philosophy of the CCJ is under question. Like I say, the views are divided, and the impression should be given that the government does not understand the importance of dealing with the issue. The truth is that if we are to take on everything all at once, we could fail with everything all at once.
Hold it right there, because I want to take another attempt at the question to get something else from you on top of what you've said. It's the understanding of the PNP, and based on the communication of yourself and others who've spoken to the constitutional reform process, chiefly you, because of course you're co-chair. The matter of the CCJ, the Privy Council, will come in phase two. I just wanted to, you come across somebody at the cash register, in the line at the pharmacy, and they say, Minister, break it down for me. Why is it that that's phase two and not phase one? From a technical perspective, because clearly you considered deeply before you laid out the phases as they are. Why phase two and not phase one? Answer it in that way.
Well, it's primarily because of the type of provisions that we are moving within phase one, the deeply entrenched provisions that constitutionally require the referendum to change. The matter regarding the final court is not one of those matters. And secondly, we're dealing with the matters on which we can arrive at consensus, because the framework requires cooperation and collaboration. So that if we agree on certain matters, and we have been going at this for a long time, you know, so many false starts. It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. People have dedicated a lot of time to do this work. We have decided to honor the work of those who went before. But we can't be content with a good idea, because the change is not going to happen by our continuing to talk. It requires a bill to go before Parliament, for the bill to be debated and passed in the process set out by the Constitution. If that doesn't happen, there is nothing to go to the people. And remember, you know, we are a representative democracy. So the people elected their representatives, and the representatives perform the lawmaking functions in the Parliament. So that the logic of it is that we move in phases on the matters on which we are agreed, and then we work on those that we need to agree on.
Hear you on that. The minister says, look, it is not harmony that they're after. They're after consensus, two different things, and that the things on which there is consensus, there's broad consensus, those have been front-loaded in phase one to settle those issues, and then move to the other issues which are thorny, which are contentious, which would require more reasoning and more consideration. That appears to be the strategy behind how the phases are set out. We're going to get deeper into it after this break here on Lead Story. This is CVM TV.
the internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Mindset Conference 2024, the Gospel Edition, Monday to Wednesday, May 20 to 22, at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel with Pastor John Gray, Pastor Travis Green, Dr. Jackie Green, Todd Galbert, Phil Thomas, Minister Marion Hall, Kevin Downswell, Sharon Gardner, Rhoda Isabella, Pastor Junior Tucker, Bishop Everton Thomas, and many more. Join us for dinner, workshop, panel discussions, praise and worship, undiluted word, and concerts every night. Mindset Conference. For more info, mindsetconference.org. Get your tickets now.
It's hit a snag again. No surprise that the constitutional reform process appears to again be, well, not quite dying on the vine. I don't want to over-exaggerate the thing, but it's at a crossroads right now because the opposition has said that, look, it's not willing to play ball until the government shows its hand where the CCJ is concerned. The government says, look, let's deal with the things on which we can have consensus, and then we go forward. And we had always said from the start, from before the start, that the CCJ matter would come up in phase 2 of the 3-phase constitutional reform process. Minister, I want to ask you this because I cannot help but think that a lot of the public sentiment about the constitutional reform process stems from a lack of information about what the Constitution is, beyond the fact of, some people will say, well, the bug rape, something in the Constitution. And when I say bug rape, something, it's not my phraseology, it's how they would put it. But beyond that, they know that they have some rights and so forth, right of education, right to health care, whatever. But they don't know. And so when they hear things about, oh, we're going to deal with the deeply entrenched provisions in the next phase, they are clueless. So if this is true, and if you accept that this is true, isn't this perhaps an indictment on the whole reform process and the important public education element which did not seep into the consciousness of enough people to inform the debates that we've been having?
I wouldn't say that the lack of education on specific matters is an indictment on the process. I think it's a reflection of where we are in the society. And to expect that the knowledge gap can be closed in this process or at this stage of the process, I believe is unrealistic. But you are right that Jamaicans by and large seem not to have enough knowledge about what the Constitution as the supreme law provides for. During our consultations with the public, a lot of the issues that were raised that are most important to the people were not issues that require constitutional reform. And so the work has begun, and we will have to continue it non-stop, because the only way we are going to get the informed citizens that we need to be part of the society that we're working towards is really to educate them. But make no mistake, there are many who understand it, but the issues are at large.
Yes.
At large, everything that faces the Jamaican has to do with their constitutional rights.
Yes.
And I've said in many places that many times people know the rights and not their wrongs.
Right.
So we recognize that there is a knowledge gap, and we are working on it, but it has to be an all of society and all of government approach.
And would you agree that the knowledge gap has lent itself to the development of what I call an ignorance resistance to certain things which are true?
I believe so, George, but we mustn't underestimate our people either and their capacity to understand things. But we are operating in an age of misinformation.
Yes.
We're operating in an age where some people take advantage of the ignorance of others. This is not the approach of our government. This is not the approach of the ministry. Accuracy matters, and it's important that people understand what is going on. But, you know, even with simpler things than constitutional reform, you tell them once, you tell them twice, and they still don't understand. So it means that we have our work cut out for us as a nation. And the bill itself will have to be brought to the attention of the people. So at this stage, everything matters to the people.
But let me ask you, I have to ask you squarely.
Yes.
You're the woman in charge of this very important process, co-chair So you share those responsibilities with Mr. Rocky Mead, correct? There you go. We've been here before. In 2012, the PNP administration then took 3 bills to Parliament to seek to introduce the CCJ and make it the final appellate court. That fell short. In 2015, they attempted through the Parliament to do similar. That fell short because the opposition JLP didn't support. We've spoken about how constitutional reform and a dedicated push to effect the reform can be traced back to the 1970s. Didn't happen. Do you feel like someone lending superintendence to a process that is bound to fail because of partisan politics?
I'm keeping faith. I'm keeping faith.
On what basis?
Hold on, no man.
Yes,
Hold on, no man.
I'm holding.
Because, you know, today we need a head of state that represents the Jamaican nationality and the identity. Oh gosh, there are so many things that we can go into about having the foreign monarch, a hereditary monarch as our head of state. But beyond that, you will recall that no attempt was made outside of the Parliament to even test the pulse and canvass the views. We don't want to make that same mistake again. We're not proceeding on any assumption that we know exactly where the people are. And that is why ensuring that we can proceed on the matters on which we have consensus is a critical part of it. But, you know, if I were to tell you that I don't understand the skepticism of the opposition, it would not be true, because we have moved so slowly.
Yeah.
On so many things we have agreed. We have failed to implement.
Yes.
And for a lot of that work took place while the People's National Party had the reins of government.
Yeah.
So the natural skepticism about can we get it done? I'm of the view, let's get what that we can agree on done, and we work on the rest.
But here's a problem with the here's a problem with the consensus that you genuinely believe, you appear to genuinely believe that we have.
And you think I'm naive?
Not naive, not naive.
I'm keeping
Absolutely
the faith.
not. No, but here's the thing.
Yes.
The PNP has said, we participated in phase 1 in good faith,
Yes.
with the understanding that we would get that desired position that we want from this on the CCJ from the government to inform our actions in the future. You have not given them that. So what we have now is a report that you've submitted to the cabinet from the committee, which is missing the signatures of King's Counsel Hugh Small, nominated to the committee by the opposition leader, Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton, Senator Donna Scott Motley. Those 3, their signatures are missing. So what is in the report is not a consensus of the committee, because 3 members have not endorsed it.
No, I wouldn't put it like that.
How would
I
you
wouldn't
put
put
it?
it like that. But let me go back to something that you have said.
Yes.
It's not about what the Jamaica Labour Party wants. It's about what is in the best interest of the people, as we understand what the people want.
I understand
All right?
that.
So we are not in government for our own self.
Yes.
We are a representative democracy.
Yes.
Power is given to us to make decisions. So our approach on the final court is which court is in the best interest
Yes.
of Jamaicans
Yes.
who use the court to resolve their disputes.
Yes.
All right, there are issues around access, and there are real issues around access. There are issues around relatability.
Yes.
There are issues around efficiency, issues around cost.
And perception of bias given the proximity.
All of those
But hold on,
issues.
Mister, hold on, I don't want you to
man,
go. I want you to go away.
So
We
I
have to
don't
take
want
the
you
break.
to say
Yes.
that it is what they want in isolation.
Yes.
What do the people want?
I hear you on that. Let's take the break and come right back. This is Lead Story, speaking with the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahou Fort. No hyphen between Malahou and Fort.
Never shy away from a challenge, who are never afraid to dirty their hands, to jump in and get things done, who are never afraid to fail, to take a risk, to learn. You know them and aspire to be like them. And you can, because there's always room for greatness. Apply today. University of Technology Jamaica, the birthplace of greatness.
Get tiles and get creative with your floors, walls, and all the spaces in between. Our knowledgeable sales consultants are happy to help create your beautiful finish with the latest designs in first quality porcelain, wood look, vinyl, mosaics, natural stones, and countertops. At Creative, you will get every tile you need for your residential or commercial projects. Creative Building Finishes, your one-stop shop for everything tiles. Visit our showroom at 5 Red Hills Road or call 876-929-5553. Get tiles, get creative.
Back with us on the lead story here on CVM TV. I'm speaking with the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Fort. She's also the co-chair of the Constitutional Reform Committee, the CRC. Now, what is the purpose of the CRC that Mrs. Malahoo Fort co-chairs with Rocky Me, the former army man, and which has about 15 members? Well, purpose to assist in providing expert guidance and oversight to the government and people of Jamaica during this constitutional reform process, to, among other things, implement recommendations of the Joint Select Committee, well, you know what that means, on which consensus remains, while helping to build consensus where it has eroded or is non-existent. It's also to assess how the passage of time has impacted those recommendations contained in that final report from 1995, which were submitted to and approved by Parliament, and advise fresh perspectives, what fresh perspectives ought to be considered in light of any new national, international, or regional development. So they have a clear mandate on what to do, guiding and sequencing the steps to be taken to implement the recommendations and others for implementation to achieve the overall reform goals. So there's no doubt about their mandate, the legitimacy of their mandate, or even the steps that they are charged with taking and leading Jamaica to take. That's not in dispute. So here's the thing now. I come back to this, Minister, to say that are you certain that the consensus that you think you have, you don't have? Because remember now, I would have said consensus would have been represented by all members of the committee, notwithstanding any concerns, notwithstanding any contentions, signing off on a report in phase 1 that is going to cabinet, and then beyond that, then other issues can be ironed out. But now you have a report that does not have these 3 people because of the reasons that we've stated clearly. I'm saying that in my view, that is not consensus, and in my view, that is what puts this process at risk of falling the way or going the way of the other processes before.
The report is not the bill. The committee is in an advisory role. The deliberations of cabinet will have to be taken into account. You would have heard that the leader of the opposition has submitted comments.
We're going to come to those comments, yes.
On the report,
yes,
or the version that he got. And the process will also go to a joint select committee when we get to the stage of the bill, where we will hear other comments on the matters. But bear in mind, you know, that the issues on which the approval of the people is required,
yes,
after the Parliament has passed the bill, those matters are set in the Constitution. Yes. I don't choose them. Yes. The opposition don't choose them.
I know you're an optimist, Minister.
But I think though, the work to resolve the issues that are standing in the way is work that has to continue.
Yes. But I know you're an optimist.
Right. No, I'm just saying to you that we have to continue the work.
I hear you on that.
And just allow me to say thank you to the members of the committee, including the members nominated by the leader of the opposition, for the work that we have done so far. Anything worthwhile is never going to be achieved easily.
I know you're an optimist, and the reason we invited you to make your position clear is that nobody can fight your corner like you and defend your corner, right? So it's not that we are here beating up on an empty chair or trying to. So here's the thing. Aren't you fearful, perhaps, that in the same way that the opposition members have not signed off on this report that is going to Cabinet for consideration, that when the time comes and it goes beyond Cabinet and goes to Parliament, the opposition may refrain from any discussion? Where the Joint Select Committee sits, they may they may not be represented at the Joint Select Committee, and so whatever you have, the consensus that you want to drive the process forward is absent. Isn't that a real concern and a real possibility given the posture of the opposition?
It is a real risk, and I don't think that any of us is not cognizant of that. All right, we will have to continue to work on the matter. When we started the process and along the way, I didn't get the impression that there was an insistence by the opposition that the two things must be done. They have said different things along the way, but what is clear is that they want timelines as to what will happen after this bill has gone in, what will happen after the cooperation is given, where do we go from there? So the clarity around the timelines, and the Prime Minister has indicated that he will continue to canvass the views, because right now the views are divided on the issue of the CCJ. But if we are going to approach the building of consensus, it can't be that this is what I want, and unless I get what I want, we can't go forward.
Leaving the negotiation table.
It has to leave room for an understanding of what is standing in the way. But, you know, the trust is broken. The trust is broken in the politics. The trust is broken in the parliament. The trust is broken in the society. And we will have to work to rebuild the trust. But there are certain things that have to be present in the rebuilding of the trust. And at least we have to be candid. We have to give, we have to take. No one can stick their heel in the sand, draw their line and say, I'm not moving.
No hard positions. Minister, I have to leave it here for this episode. We're not done yet because there's much more to go in this discussion. What I will say at this point is that I'm left fearful because I've read enough of our history and seen the actions of enough of our leaders to know the weight of partisan politics is immense. It's incalculable. It's of gargantuan proportions. And I fear that it is interfering with the process once again that the country needs. We need to shed the monarchy. We need a constitution that we own, not some appendage to an order in council from the Queen. We need to take charge of our own affairs as an independent nation, a Republic Jamaica, looking at her next 60 years with the hangovers from our colonial past truly shed. But we need smart men and women. We need consensus, as the minister said. We need harmony. We need give and take. We can't have you giving a little and expecting to take a lot. And we can't expect that you will force something on the other side and not want to give anything in return. That's my time. We return return the day after with the minister here to continue this very important discussion.